I have been locked in on the XRP ledger amendments because these are some of the most important changes coming to the XRP ledger that we need to focus on as holders, because a lot of these things are going to unlock a massive amount of utility for XRP, and it's also going to allow the floodgates to officially open. We have been analyzing some of these amendments. One of the most important ones that we are looking into right now is obviously the lending protocol. But prior to that, we were looking into the permission domains and also the permissioned DEX. These things unlock huge use cases like on-chain FX. And it also gives institutional players the green light to adopt and utilize the XRP ledger. That's why this is so important to look into as an XRP holder. Now, before we officially dive on into the video, I just want to let you guys know from the sponsor, I Trust Capital. That's right, I am sponsored by them. However, I have been a supporter of I Trust Capital for a very long time. If you guys do want to go check out their platform right now, you can use my link and you can get a bonus when you deposit $1,000 on their platform. They give you a free $100. And the best part about I Trust Capital is that it is a fully tax advantaged platform when you tap into their IRA service, but they also have a premium custody account, which allows you to buy, sell, and trade crypto 24/7, as well as gold and silver. So if you guys do want to go check them out, there's going to be a link down in the description below, as well as in the comments below. And with that being said, let's dive on in. So let's first start off with this post here from Ripple XDev going back to January 13th. Back in January, we did see Ripple XDev put out this post regarding the permission domains. The amendment for permission domains is nearing the threshold for activation. Ripple supports this feature as well as the permission DEX, which this will ultimately enable. Now, that's the main thing that we are looking into with the permission domains. This amendment is not just enabling the permission domains, it's also enabling the permission DEX. But the permission DEX still needs to be voted on as an amendment. But the main thing that we are looking at with permission domains is exactly what does it mean for the XRP ledger? Well, this is a game changer for the XRP ledger because they bring institutional grade controls to a public network without sacrificing the trade-offs of a private chain. So anything that a private chain can do, now the XRP ledger will be able to do that because of permission domains, which means institutional players do not need, they no longer need to look into, private blockchain initiatives. They could just tap into the XRP ledger and get those same efficiencies on a public blockchain. This is a very big game changer for a lot of those huge use cases that we constantly talk about. But when we think about the permission domain, we also think about the permission DEX, which will enable permissioned trading flows, as well as locking in the lending protocol, which is also another upcoming amendment, which will also apply permission domains for controlled lending and borrowing flows. Again, this is all based around institutional use cases. The main one that we are looking at when it comes back to this amendment is obviously on-chain FX. On-chain FX is a massive use case that we have been speculating on for years becoming a reality, because at the end of the day, with all these new stablecoins, we even now have non-USD stablecoins launching. It enables on-chain FX. And the XRP ledger is really, in my opinion, purpose-built for this. So this is where we can start to see that big shift where massive amounts of capital are flowing on-chain when you start to have public blockchains like the XRP ledger have all of the permissions that institutional players need enabled. And it all starts off with, of course, permission domains, which then leads to, of course, the permission DEX, because again, the permission DEX has strong potential to capture payment-related institutional flows. Some examples to consider are, like, for an example, stablecoin and fiat FX swaps, contractor and payroll payouts, cross-border B2B payments, and corporate treasury. But this does not happen unless we have the permission domains and the permission DEX built into the XRP ledger, which is why when we think about these amendments, they are so important. Now we know that on-chain FX is still at the top of the priority list from Ripple, even Evernorth, right? The largest public XRP treasury company, they said back in the end of December that they are fully focused on, moving away from speculation from digital assets into institutional use, where they are looking at corporate treasury, DeFi to global stablecoins, on-chain FX, and even utility-driven NFTs. Blockchain is becoming core financial infrastructure. Now, when we think about this, we also go over here to Reese Merrick. By the way, Ashish Birla, previously Ripple, Reese Merrick, also an employee at Ripple. Similar story from my side. Before joining Ripple, I spent 10 plus years in FX dealing with payments for large enterprise customers. There was nothing worse than getting a call from a customer asking me where their funds were. All you could confirm is that the payment had left our bank and hope the payout or payment cleared before they called back to chase it again. Painful. And again, this is why FX is so inefficient. Traditional FX is horrible to deal with, which is why on-chain FX is a game changer. Now, when we think about all of this, we go over here. Big shout out to Anderson for this. Some important XRP ledger amendments are about to go live. XLS 80 permission domains goes live in less than 2 days because he did post this on the 2nd. XLS 85 token escrow goes live in 10 days. With this amendment, issued assets can be escrowed. Previously, this was only possible with the XRP natively on the XRP ledger. XLS 81 permission DEX currently voting with just 2 yes votes to go before countdown starts. When XLS 80 and XLS 81 go live, institutions and others will have the opportunity to start utilizing the permission DEX, which will be huge for the XRP ledger in my opinion. The XLS 56 batch currently in voting with just 2 yes votes left provides the option to bundle transactions. Great institutional use case. Again, all of these major amendments are focused on one thing: institutional utility. Because again, we know that Ripple is prepping the XRP ledger for massive amounts of institutional use cases and utility itself. Because when we go back to even the institutional DeFi stack that Ripple is launching, that is all built within the XRP ledger with XRP at the core of it. That's a huge use case, and that's something that I have been focused on. It's a DeFi portal that Ripple is creating all for institutional players. XRP is the powerhouse stack behind that. Now, we go over here. I said this is a huge moment for XRP. The XRP ledger just got one of the most important amendment activations to date because yes, the XLS 80 permission domains is now activated on the XRP ledger. We are only 1 yes vote away from the permission DEX amendment to begin the 2-week countdown. When both these amendments are activated, institutions and others will start to be utilizing the permission DEX on the XRP ledger. This is built into the XRP ledger. We even have over here, what exactly is the permission DEX? The XRP ledger DEX utilizes permission domains to create restricted order books for both permissionless and permission tokens. This helps regulated entities meet their compliance requirements while operating on the XRP ledger DEX. A permission DEX proposal builds directly on these standards, enabling regulated institutions to create and participate in DEX order books that enforce access based on credentialed identity. Think about all of the, speculation regarding, for an example, off-chain movement of funds, or even the private XRP ledger stack, or even, these dark pools. All of that can now shift onto the public ledger because of the permission DEX and permission domains. But we also go back to the amendment list because yes, when we think about the next major one that we are looking into, the permission DEX is the main one that we are watching. And right now, currently, this is not enabled. However, it just went into the full countdown. We are 12 days and 23 hours away from having the permission DEX also enabled on the XRP ledger. This is going to be the next major game changer for XRP. If everything goes as planned, if we stay within that threshold of 80+%, then we will have this activated on February 18th at 10:56 a.m. UTC. This will be a major game changer for XRP. And remember what David Schwartz said. Ripple has 300 plus bank partnerships, but after 13 years, shouldn't there be billions in daily on-chain volume? That's a question. I think there are a number of reasons why institutions have historically preferred to use digital assets off-chain rather than on-chain. I think we're close to changing that because institutions are starting to see the benefits of moving on-chain, but I agree, it has been very slow. Even Ripple can't use the XRP Ledger DEX for payments yet because we can't be sure a terrorist won't provide the liquidity for payment. Features like permission domains will address this. So this is coming from David Schwartz, previous Ripple CTO, confirming that although, yes, we constantly are hearing about all of these institutional players that Ripple is partnered up with. Oh, this institutional player will use XRP, or that institutional player will use XRP. And we're questioning, like, why the hell isn't anyone using XRP? It's very clear, right? Like, although, yes, there's a lot of use of XRP, it's definitely not institutional players using it at scale, though. And we question why. Well, this is exactly why. He even said that Ripple can't use the XRP Ledger DEX for payments because again, you can't confirm who's providing the liquidity. But now that the first major step of this is activated, permission domains, because again, this is why permission domains are so crucial. Once this is, fully enabled, which right now it is activated, Ripple and all of the institutional players can start to utilize XRP on chain. But also, don't forget about the permission DEX, because this is going to be the major one to really focus on, because when you combine all of this, the credentials, the permission domains, the permission DEX, you start to see the institutional use cases really become a possibility. And this is all based around the public XRP ledger. This is where all of those, speculations for years, all of the ideas that XRP, influencers have talked about, all of those ideas and all of the speculation can begin to come true because of these major amendments. Now, we have from RippleX that permission domains are now live on the XRP Ledger mainnet, and permission DEX has achieved validator consensus to activate in 2 weeks. Soon, the full permissioning stack will be available for institutions to access compliant liquidity pools on the public XRP Ledger. Credentials, verifiable attestations of identity or compliance status issued by trusted parties. Permission domains, controlled environments that define which credentials are required to participate as a verified issuer. Permission DEX, order books within the native DEX that only accept trades from accounts meeting domain requirements. All of these things. This is that full permissioning stack. I wouldn't even call it the permissioning stack. I would say that this is the full institutional stack. This is all things that those institutional players need in order to tap into the public XRP ledger. And this is where we can start to see the real use cases brew. We also have over here, OK, permission DEX is now voted in and waiting mandatory 2 weeks to activate. This is from Vincent Van Code. We now have all the pieces of the puzzle: identity, permission domains, permission DEX. These are crucial for regulated financial institutions and companies to start using the XRP ledger for payments, and particularly auto-bridging convert tokens on the fly in a safe KYC AML compliant manner. This is huge. And yeah, when we think about this, right, like let's combine everything that we know. Okay, the 300 plus bank partnerships that Ripple has, I would argue that that's at roughly 500 plus. Let's not forget all of the major tokenization initiatives that Ripple has announced over the last roughly 2 years. Think about, Ripple announcing multiple stablecoins on the XRP ledger as well. With all of these things, we could start to see the real picture form, because now all of those institutional players, even Ripple as well, will now be able to tap into on-chain use cases, on-chain FX, on-chain lending and borrowing, on-chain, payments in general, on-chain everything. This is where all of the big use cases finally get enabled. We have been waiting for this for a very long time. So even cross-border payments, all of these use cases that we've talked about since going all the way back to 2021 and even prior, they all become a reality. This is a big moment. Just like I said, it's a huge moment. I'm very excited to watch the permission DEX countdown. I think everyone should pay attention to this. Just like I said with, the permission domains. If all goes well, by the end of this month, the XRP ledger is going to get a major upgrade. This is awesome to see. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video.